And I'm joined by Congressman David Schweikert of Fountain Hills. He has decided to run for Arizona governor in the Republican primary. Good to see you again, sir.
No, thanks for having me.
Okay, let's set up the Republican primary. You have two opponents endorsed by Donald Trump. You are not endorsed by Donald Trump. Would you want the president's endorsement if you could get it?
Sure, if wants to do that, but we're actually going to try something a little novel. We're going to run as a free market conservative. We're going to go out there and hopefully earn people's votes by saying, look, here's conservative principles, and here's why it works. Here's why, look, for prosperity, for the way people live. I believe that's actually one of our failings. We've lost every high-profile statewide race for years now.
Here in Arizona?
Here in Arizona. You think about it.
Why do you think that is?
Because we have candidates who haven't focused on people.
Is it just that they haven't focused on people? We have candidates who haven't focused on facts.
Yeah, but I mean, the same thing. If you can actually go into a room and say, look, purchasing power of people in this community are less today than they were 4 years ago, meaning you're poorer today than 4 or 5 years ago. I'm running for office. My goal is to make your life better. Start showing that you actually give a darn about people. And I actually believe a conservative approach, free market economics, is the way you get there, not a campaign of past resentments.
Not a campaign of past resentments. You'd be overcoming a pretty huge hurdle not having Donald Trump's endorsement in a Republican primary.
It's both a big deal, and we actually have some pretty detailed polling that make it clear the path is ours. Now, part of that is...
The path is yours. What do you mean?
To win.
Lay it out.
No, look, you spend lots of time in the polling and the crosstabs and all the... Look, I believe politics is math. That's sort of my geeky factor. There is a craving out there for a conservative candidate that actually focuses on your life instead of focuses on a history of resentments. And there is a path to win, and this is a big deal. Beyond our loss after loss after loss at the top of the ticket, this year's going to be unique. The governor is the top of the ticket. So someone that can also have conservative independents, vote for them, actually is very powerful for the rest of the Republican ticket. You know, we don't have a Senate race, we don't have a presidential at the top of the ticket this year. So this is important.
So you've never really, unlike your fellow Republican colleagues in our delegation, you haven't really been very public in warming up to Donald Trump. What would you list as his successes?
Actually, in many ways, the irony here is I probably do more work with the White House than almost any delegation in the country. But that's partially because I chair the Joint Economic Committee. I'm number 4 in Ways and Means. I chair the oversight.
But you know, this party is very performative, demonstrative of their loyalty to Donald Trump. We haven't seen that from you.
But think about what you just said. And on occasion you get the person that says, I didn't see you on Fox saying something angry, but yet here's my schedule where I just met with Haslett and the economic advisors and doing the calculations on the tariffs. I'm probably on the phone with the White House every other day. Look, some of us actually do the work, and some people want to be Twitter stars. I do the work.
You've said in reports today that you think Washington is unsavable, and that's why you're leaving. A lot of Republicans think Donald Trump is saving it right now. Do you disagree with them?
No, what I've said is Congress is unsavable. I made a deal with leadership that when we would finish the reconciliation budget, the next reconciliation would be a series of my legislation to pay for things. We did great work. Speaker gave me an additional PhD of healthcare economics. So I have a handful of PhDs that work for me. We produced 3 bills, comes in at $3.2 trillion. Remarkably good economics, good bills. I can't get a single other member of Congress to sponsor them with me. It's an example of the theatrics versus the willingness to tell the public the truth about the finances. We're borrowing $70,000 a second. I'm in a 50-50 district, and yet willing to step up and say, here's how we fix things. And yet the people I work with refuse to help.
And yet you have voted for bills that don't fix things, that in fact increase the deficit and the debt. So how do you explain that? Because we see your
But where you're wrong, Brent, is also part, that's actually what I just explained. Part of the deal was, okay, we move this, then here's the pay for bill. And what's happened is they broke the promise. So do you stay there and...
You've been there 15 years. You know the way
No,
it
this
works.
was different. No, this was different. This promise was in writing with witnesses and was public. Hell, the Washington Post did actually a whole expose on it. I introduced legislation 13 weeks ago, so to have a chance to be vetted. And yet we have visited maybe 50 offices. And I can't seem to get a single person to co-sponsor because of fear. What's happened is...
Fear of?
I think the political theater.
Fear of Donald Trump?
No, just the opposite. I would actually say it's the fear of the social media, the political consultants that have weaponized everything. If I step into a room and say...
Donald Trump has weaponized this.
Well, but no.
Acknowledge that.
I would also go the political consultants. What's happening like in the government shutdown right now, how much of that is the political consultants on the left telling Schumer and gang, saying, hey, what you did just a few months ago, you're not allowed to do this time because it hurt our polling. It's a sort of a pox in everyone's house. And my frustration is the lack of willingness of almost anyone I work with, left or right, to actually tell the truth about the math.
And we've heard that from you for several years. And going back to the first Trump term, you also voted for tax cuts.
Did the 2017 tax reform, one of the greatest economic engines of modern time, and you saw the scoring.
Also increase the deficit.
But you actually look at the scoring before the pandemic. It was actually, I have the papers if you want it, the economic growth was remarkable, and actually even CBO was doing dramatic recalculations of its cost. And look, I did the international portion of it, which was really geeky, but it worked. We brought back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in jobs and corporations back to the United States. And then we hit the pandemic. And look, in retrospect, some of the ways we stopped the economic hemorrhaging in the pandemic were sloppy. And we were unwilling to actually step back in and fix our misalignments. You can only try so many times and get shot down and come back and go at them again.
Is it ever worth just taking a stand?
Oh, well, look.
I mean, in terms of a no vote?
Oh, I've done lots of no votes. Heavens.
On
a number of things. Maybe not the things that are theatrical for you, but take a look at the bills I've stopped in committee, the things I've gotten rewritten, the negotiations of even this last major piece of legislation. It is substantially different than its original draft because of what my team and I did. Okay. But at a certain point, you deal with the reality of the global story of next year, for every dollar we take in, we're going to spend $1.43. Almost all of that is interest and healthcare costs. And the calcification intellectually of anyone being willing to help you do what's necessary. I have dozens of bills introduced, all of them controversial, of ways to fix things. I get great press on the finance channels and those things, and yet my brothers and sisters almost run away from me when they see me walking down the hallway because I might ask them something that's hard.
Let's get back to politics and the primary. Why can't Karen Taylor Robeson win? She came close in the last time.
Look, I have a level of fondness for both of them. I've known them most of my life. At some point, it's math. And you do the polling, You take a look at the data on how their message is being absorbed. And at some point, the facts are the facts.
Because the conventional wisdom is you would help Andy Biggs as a third candidate.
Yeah, that's,
Again,
that's actually not the polling.
That's not the polling.
That's not the polling.
So the polling shows you in the lead in the head-to-head against
No,
the two
no,
others.
not yet. Look, you have two candidates that have, 7, 8 months lead? But when you actually go through the mechanisms, and I have to spend the next couple of months telling my story and telling the morality of conservative policies, of morality of living better, of economic growth. And when we tested all those things, we'll be fine.
The flip side of your Washington or Congress is unsavable was Arizona is savable. Our unemployment rate is doing pretty well right now. Budget is an issue with lots of federal dollars. But
actually, take a look.
What does Arizona need to be saved from?
Actually, take a look. You're actually starting to see our wage growth has become fairly anemic. Our job creation is actually, we've gone from the very top to the very bottom, or close to the bottom. You have all the telltale signs of we're no longer the shining star in the country. You also have to...
Isn't that a national story, though?
No. Arizona's numbers are actually much more anemic than much of the rest of the country. You also have another reality that the political class doesn't really like to want to talk about. The federal government is starting to hit financial stress. 45% of the state budget actually comes from the federal government. Almost every dime of that is borrowed. You're going to, over the next few years, see a situation where there's going to be this dialing back of the federal largesse that's handed out. It's just math. And the ability to modernize, adopt policies that prepare for, can you still do things better, faster, cheaper? And there are solutions. It's just, you're going to have to work with the legislature to actually start redesigning how we deliver services.
You talk about federal largesse going away. One of the things you would have to deal with as governor, if elected, is Medicaid support going away. Rural hospitals.
Remember,
rural hospitals right now warning we might have to close.
Okay, 2-year facts have some issues.
I'm just going with what they...
Yeah, I know, and so many of the propagandists actually say things that aren't actually true.
So you think that's all propaganda?
No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
So in the packages that are up for vote right now, there's a 26% increase in Medicare spending over the next 10 years. The problem was the curve was higher than that. Rural hospitals, we actually set aside a fairly substantial amount of money as an assistance for rural hospitals. Arizona's rural hospitals actually are a little unique because of their population densities compared to states that have different rural populations. Access has the chance to go back to being this shining star of efficiency, but you also can't have losing $2.8 billion in the sober living home scandals, in the durable medical equipment scandals, these things. Those are fixable with simple data systems. There are ways to make this work. And I actually give an entire floor speeches on the craziness of some of the things on the ability to re-import certain pharmaceuticals from Canada, to all these things that can become part of the efficiency of changing the price. Here's the intellectual argument I'll make to you. We've turned healthcare into a financing argument, not a cost of services argument. I want to get back to changing the cost of delivering of those services.
How long is it now? 5 years ago, you were reprimanded by the House for 11 ethics violations. You were fined $50,000. How should voters look at that today?
Actually, what's been fascinating is we actually went out and did town halls and meetings and telecom. And I think the fact we sort of went at it pretty hard, and we've polled it. Democrats have spent millions and millions. It actually doesn't move our polling.
that race in 2022, the first one after that.
No. Actually, got to go back. Got to go
Correct.
back a few years before that.
It was July, I think
So
July.
2020, I think.
But the 2022 race was your closest one.
No, 2022 was close, but the 2020, actually we did just fine, but the 2022, remember, was close for everyone. And even this last time, I far exceeded everyone's predictions of, remember.
So was that just, well, let's get back to the question though. Was that just a blip?
No,
How should they view you
I
given?
think,
That's a, you
I
were,
think it's actually.
that's a pretty serious reprimand.
Yeah, no, it was a reprimand. It wasn't a censure, it was a reprimand. And I think the fact of the matter is we've dealt with it remarkably openly. And I have polling after polling after polling that the public wanted to move on. They wanted us to actually get to the point of pay attention to the things that voter, that family needs. And look, if that's what the Democrats and those want to run on, God bless them. But you'll notice they didn't even do it because it doesn't move the polling. At some point, facts are facts.
And if the election, the primary becomes a litmus test for who's supporting Donald Trump, which it's likely to be.
It may, in that case, we'll be able to step up and say, look, here's the pieces of legislation I've been instrumental in moving. We will actually have a handful of folks that are actually very well known in the conservative movement that will be coming out to help us. I think that will help tell the story.
There is, for the conservative, the MAGA base, there is a story floating out there that you and Gina Swoboda, the Republican Party chair, kind of are working together on your campaign. Have you two had any contacts on that?
You talk to the chairwoman repeatedly. She is the chairman of the Republican Party. And look, she did a remarkably good job last general election cycle. It was the easiest we ever had in working with the party. Not to get into geekdom, but in a general election, you're allowed to actually run your mail and those things through the party. You get to use a nonprofit postage stamp, so everyone does it. We should be proud. They did it very, very well. I was on the phone with her just a couple days ago telling her I was going to do this. And she was very respectful, but she has never given me a phone number or someone to call or help. I've got nothing special from her.
It's interesting, in the course of our conversation, you've mentioned polling.
Yeah, and sorry,
And I think
it's my
you know,
geekdom, and I'm sorry about that. It's the math of politics.
The math of politics, many voters are suspicious of politicians who just poll everything.
And they should be. But we did something actually that was very different. Mm-hmm. We went out and did a ginormous poll saying, are voters ready for someone? It's a conservative, a classic free market, unabashed, pro-life conservative. So it wasn't what issues they wanted, because I'm not going to change. You and I have known each other 25 years. In many ways, I would say the person you knew me ideologically 25 years ago is pretty much the same person I am today. I may have a little more background and sophistication on data. And that was really the test, is can a classic conservative actually win? And the fun thing is we found from the ultra MAGA to the person who's just trying to figure out how to pay their mortgage, there is a hunger for that type of resolute focus on conservative solutions to their life.
Among registered Republicans, not just independents.
No,
you called yourself a conservative.
Primary voters.
Primary voters. We're talking about registered Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's more than registered Republicans. It's primary voters.
Primary voters.
And look, you've covered how much polling over your career?
Too much.
And you know, so much polling today is a fraud. If you have
yours is correct.
Well, and it costs me a lot of money. But you see these people who do text messages and those things. Come on, those are self-selecting. There's a reason no one credible actually ever publishes those.
There's one thing about these conservative Republicans. You and I may have different groups or people in mind, but when it comes to things like the January 6th attempt to overturn the election, They feel strongly that was wrong and people should have been punished. I think polling would show that. You kind of waffled in your votes on January.
No, okay, you're conflating. No.
If I'm wrong, please let me be wrong all the way wrong. Okay?
You're
But
absolutely.
in the votes on when it came down to accepting the votes
Exactly.
of different states, you said, what did you say about Arizona?
Arizona, the law said if it is transmitted properly from the legislature, it meets the statutory requirements. What came from Arizona met the statutory requirement. The one that came from Pennsylvania didn't. Remember, the court actually transmitted that. It's what the lawyers provided us. And please don't play that game of conflating this with this. And we were very honest about that. You know, it would have been politically, in many ways, smarter to just, not accept this one. But that wasn't the law. And at some point, take the head bashing, explain why you do it, and follow what the statute actually said.
We have just a couple minutes left. You're the math guy, the chart guy. What's the slogan for the David Schweikert campaign for governor?
If you have a suggestion, we're looking for one. We were going to look at the old Reagan one of making Arizona great again, but that one seems to have been used a lot. How do you find a slogan that makes it clear that your fixation is you want Arizona to be the very best place to retire, to raise your kids? I mean, I have a 3-year-old and 9-year-old. I want them to prosper. I want my neighbors who are heading to retirement to prosper. And so somewhere here, I got to come up with an overarching theme that's optimistic about our future. So if you have a suggestion, I'll take one.
Got to end it there. Congressman David Schweikert.
Thank you for having me.